Good evening. Welcome to another scintillating Odyssey storytelling presentation. The theme of tonight's show is karma. I'm Bella Vivanti, and I'll be hosting tonight's show. And Ethel Lee Miller will be our producer, very ably assisting us. You may remember her as my mentor on last November's show, Second Chances.
Yes, we are back again to introduce each of our storytellers. And we have 5 great stories tonight where each teller will share an experience of karma in their life.
You know, Ethel, karma has a range of meanings, beginning with its importance in some religions.
Well, I know it's an important concept in Hinduism and Buddhism and Jainism. And so we are conscious of that in each thing we say and what's presented tonight will be done with respect for the religious value.
Do you know if its meaning in popular culture as a system of moral cause and effect validly reflects its religious origins?
I think it seems roughly valid. I mean, my actions, positive or negative, are going to have consequences, and at some point they will have to be fulfilled. I think, as with a lot of things, the nuances of that will emerge with the interpretation.
And we'll hear some of those nuances in tonight's stories. You know, I once had an experience that I always saw as an example of what goes around can come back around instantaneously.
Okay, you have my attention.
Well, many years ago, when I was much, much younger, I was participating in a spiritually based Native American-led cross-country walk for world peace and the preservation of Mother Earth. Midway through the walk, I took a break to socialize with some friends, and we shared in a social smoke. Well, leaving their house, I fell hard on my butt on their concrete porch. Everyone looked at me with the judgment I already knew. Some spirit had just slapped me upside the head to remind me of the journey I was supposed to be on at that particular moment.
Ooh, ouch. That sounds painful.
Well, fortunately, I wasn't seriously hurt. But as you see, I've long remembered this incident and hopefully the lesson I was supposed to learn from it. Well, of a very different and very inspiring sort is our first storyteller, Gail Arrenholtz. I've known her for very many years as a gifted artist, dream worker, and someone who cares deeply about others and the world we live in. Enjoy her story of how the image and power of the cow have resonated throughout her life. Gail.
Greetings from Farmington, Illinois. I am here visiting my little niece who was just born, and as I care for her, it occurs to me that I was born under the archetype of the cow. Because I was born on a dairy farm, and my earliest memories are that the grannies and the aunties brought birthday money for me, which my parents proceeded to steal. Before I go on, I probably need to tell you this. People here don't tell stories. They spin the yarn because they have the gift of gab. They like to flap their jaws. So I'm here on the farm, and I remember that Bessie the cow would chase me through the barn lot almost every day. And I remember one time the milkman saying, "This is not normal." What he meant was it's not normal for a cow to come out of the barn with her nostrils flared, appearing a lot more like a bull than a cow, and she would chase me. Well, this went on my whole childhood until puberty, I think it was, when my parents particularly my dad, said, you know, we've established ourselves as dairy farmers and we think we should repay you the debt we owe you. Well, I imagine gold coins and a trip to the big city to buy things we couldn't afford during that time we established. And he said, oh no, you talked about all the hard work here and you were going to go to college. So we're going to give you 13 head of cattle so that you can earn enough money to go to college. Well, cows didn't like me, but I liked them. And I thought, better than nothing, I'll take the cows. So I raised them. And as I was telling someone recently, you know how that story ended because we were not vegan. And anyway, won't go on with that one. The next phase of my life was, in fact, that I went to college, became a nurse. After nursing school, I went on to Peace Corps Honduras. And when I came back from Honduras, I met a big city slicker. And I married the man. Now, we didn't have geography here in Illinois because we weren't leaving. We were told just memorize the states and capitals, which I did. And part of that ignorance was that I didn't know Italians from the north were one type of Italian and from the south were another. As you might figure, my husband was from the south. And before you could say skadoodle, I was living the life of a soprano wife. So I backpedaled out of there as quick as I could, and I guess I'm lucky I got out at all. And I proceeded to think that I wasn't doing so well. I couldn't go back to the farm where I came from, and I didn't understand how to live in big cities. So I thought, well, Mom was Native American, and we were encouraged to record and remember our dreams. So I thought, I need a dream interpreter. So I went on a search. Freud and Carl Jung were important at that period in time, and I happened to find a Jungian analyst in Amherst, Massachusetts. He could record or interpret dreams, and I lived in Brattleboro, Vermont, so I could drive down and see him. And it wasn't too long into seeing him that he said, look, you're trying to be an intellectual medical anthropologist when you're really a feeling, intuitive, probably artistic type. So why don't you get the Book of Changes, which will help you develop your intuition? And I did. I liked him, and I bought this book and proceeded to throw the coins and get a hexagram or something to meditate on. Well, this particular day, I had dreamed that a cow jumped over the moon. And as I recall, there was a fork and a spoon in my dream. I don't know what that was about, but the meditation came up and it said, you should learn docility of the cow. So I sat there and I thought about the fact that cows chew their cud. They walk close to the earth. They're great mothers. And in fact, they are docile. And I thought what it meant was I should develop those qualities. Well, about that time, I got up really quickly, went to leave my suburban apartment. I opened the door, and there stands a Jersey cow with a clump of grass in her mouth. And she walked in to my apartment. So once I got the cow out of the apartment, I went on to see the dream analyst. And I think, I kept working on those behaviors of the cow. My next experience with the cow was in the 3rd stage of childbirth. I decided I would have a home birth. I'm in the third trimester. The head is coming down like a torpedo to the exit. And anyway, I had a doctor of osteopathy and a nurse on the other side of me. And I remember the nurse saying, you know, the contractions are stronger. You probably need some rest. So why don't you close your eyes and sleep in between contractions? Well, when I did, I would see a white cow with fire on her back. Well, the white cow, which I painted out of gratitude later, she was a Parsi cow. The Persians who were discriminated against by Muslims fled to India, and they must have mixed religions, and they worship cow with a fire on her back. So hence, I have what I renamed the Pentecostal cow with fire on her back, and I painted her. And after I did, well, let me backtrack. The cow, I need to tell you, in between contractions, would look over her shoulder. She's walking through red dirt in the Southwest, sort of like in a Georgia O'Keeffe painting. And she'd look at me as if to say, if you just follow me, all will be well. All being well in birth means 10 toes, 10 fingers, no tearing, no episiotomy. And it was. All turned out well. And I, at this point in time, am much older. I think I've integrated the behavior of the cow. And I'm wondering, you know, does that mean that if I die, will I be able not to come back here and just reside in bliss? Or am I going to be like Kuan Yin, who will say, no, I hear one person suffering. And the truth is, I can't decide whether this is the end of my story or the beginning of a next life. And there you have it. I have spun the yarn.
Thank you, Gail. I have a renewed appreciation for the presence and personality of cows. Our next storyteller is a local actor who also often shows up at stand-up comedy venues like the Surly Wench, Tim Foran.
It started with a phone call. Hello, is this Tim Foran? Yes, I said, this is Tim Foran. Who's this? Tim, it's your doctor. We have the results of your biopsy. Would you like to hear them? Are you still there? Yes, I said, I'm still there. I'd like the results. There was a dramatic pause. You have cancer, but there is some good news. Okay, what does that mean? Well, it's at stage 1, so you have several options. I paused and thought about it. Okay, what are the options? Well, we can monitor the trend every 3 months and see how you're doing. Great, so I'm in cancer purgatory, a force field. Next option. The doctor sounded promising. Well, there's radiation treatment. I like that. I could become a mutant like the X-Men and have superpowers. What's the side effects? Well, typically, it's impotency. Oh, great. So I can call myself Disappointment Man and wear a cape. My wife will be thrilled. What's the last option? Well, that is surgery. We remove the prostate. Of course, like any surgery, there's certain risks. Okay, doc, what are the risks? Well, impotency, lack of sexual desire, flatulence, hair loss, intermittent diarrhea. I tell you what, doc, let me think about this and call you back. Well, Those results were December of last year, 2019. At least they didn't say, Merry Christmas, you have cancer, happy holidays. So how do I break out of this? Do I run around and make amends to all my friends and family, kind of a bucket list thing? That seems like treading water. Do I get into astrology and feng shui, but, going by the stars and rearranging my furniture as guidance really doesn't do much for me? Or do I look the Grim Reaper in the eye and succumb to death? Well, if there is an afterlife, I have a couple of questions. Will I have a body and have to pay taxes? And more importantly, will I meet annoying deceased relatives? This would be a lot funnier if it was somebody else and not me, but that's the way it is. I do have a sense of urgency to get out of the complacent and into the fascinating. This could be the hardest thing I've ever done, but it could also be the best. Except we're in the middle of a pandemic, so my ability to live life to its fullest is pretty limited. I went fishing the other day. We had to stand 10 feet apart. I couldn't smoke a cigar because of the mask thing, so it wasn't much fun. I have gone back to practicing my guitars, ukulele, and keyboards, but motivation is, hard. I've tried songwriting, but titles like I'm cashing in my life insurance policy blues and I have cancer, so my gal leaving me ain't so bad, just not so good. I did start radiation treatments, and the whole experience is very much like being kidnapped by aliens and probed, except these aliens, the technicians, are pretty friendly. The chamber is slightly claustrophobic. I do have new empathy for the fish, the bass and trout I used to catch, being slapped on a table and poked and prodded and let go, because that's pretty much what they do with me. The worst part is during the treatments, they play 70s easy listening rock like the Carpenters and Bread and Christopher Cross, and that's far more painful than the treatment itself. I do have, how do you handle all this stuff? Well, I try to focus on small projects where I have some control. Here is my Hello Kitty guitar. It's bright pink with the giant Hello Kitty and bow. And I put down here a chrome bridge and lace gold pickups favored by Eric Clapton. And at the top here, Fender Stratocaster tuning pegs. On my PV electric bass here, which is black, I have a purple pickguard in tribute to Prince and some black and chrome Williamson pickups. And also I put, if you can see, chrome tuning pegs here. So what that does is it allows me to forget about the cancer and the pandemic, at least for a little bit. I do have the ability now to spend more time with my lovely wife, Janet. And the good news is every day is movie night, also in the afternoon. I find if I'm going to get into a fight, try to go to another room or go outside, except we live in Tucson, Arizona in the summertime, and outside is 106 degrees Fahrenheit. So if you're going to get into a fight, do it early in the morning or late at night. Don't do it in the middle of the day. How I also am doing stand-up comedy on Surly Wench Pub Zoom website, which is weird because it's all like this. There's boxes and a screen. There's no live audience to get a reaction from. So it's difficult. People type in their opinions of your jokes on chat, which is a little weird. Also, some of the comics start out by saying, I'm doing this as therapy, which is a real red flag. If anybody says, I'm doing this as therapy, tell them, get therapy. Overall, though, I'm slightly optimistic. A vaccine will be found. My cancer treatments will be done in 2 months. And the world will return, not to normal, but hopefully to a better place. Karma and cancer and bad stuff will always be with us. But myself and the rest of humanity, we have a small shred of self-will, self-control over the stuff we can control. So I'm optimistic and slightly positive. I'm raising my glass here, and the glass is half full.
That viewpoint of looking at a health challenge through the lens of humor is such a great reminder for me. I have a little post-it on my desktop for that, so thank you, Tim. We are now at halfway through our Karma show, and our next storyteller has a huge repertoire of stories. Some of them are a mix of half-truth and half his truth. But tonight, he brings a story that is the truth, the whole truth. Ron Lancaster.
This is a story called A Million Miles. It's a story of karma. In May of 1990, I was just getting out of the shower, and I was dressing, and my wife was in the bedroom, and she was sitting on the bed. And she had just gotten back from 2 or 3 weeks in Ireland on a tour. And as I came out, I was putting on my tie, and she said, "Ronnie, I want a divorce." I said, "What?" She said, I fell in love with the tour director. He's my soulmate. And I said, "Soul? Isn't that a fish?" She said, No, don't make jokes. And I said, what is this? She just said, "That's it." So as I was walking out the door, I heard her call some girlfriend and talk about this dreamboat. And I'm sure she wasn't talking about me. So I lived in LA and I lived in North Hollywood, and I had to drive all the way to El Segundo to use aircraft, where I went up to the boss and I told him my story, and he says, "Get out of here, take a week's vacation." So I said, all right. So I had to drive all the way back up the 405 freeway, and I didn't know what to do, but I knew I couldn't go home. So I just kept driving, and I got on the 5 and I sped up a little bit, and I got over to the 95 or the 395, and I made a right, and I went through Death Valley, which was just right for what I was feeling. And I kept saying, my wife left me for a fish. I drove for 10 hours, and I was coming to Las Vegas. And it was just right when the lights started going on. And I was so confused. And I don't know if you've ever been to Las Vegas, but I was there a lot. And I used to have time to practice for Las Vegas. Now, how you practice is you throw money down a toilet until it doesn't make you feel good. But I didn't have time to do that. And I was saying, I only have about $60. I don't even have money for a room. And then I remembered, Hughes Aircraft owned Circus. Now, Circus was a wild place. It was actually a circus inside this hotel. Actually, it must have been 2 circuses. That's why they called it Circus. So I remembered that I could get in free because I had my badge still on and my suit and everything. I was ready for work. So I went up to the counter and I checked in and they said, "Where's your luggage?" I said, "I'm not luggage." He said, "You want somebody to carry you up?" I said, "Nope, I can carry myself up and save the tip." So I went to before I went to the elevator, I went to this little store, they got these little stores, and there was a bunch of little 1-ounce liquor bottles. And I decided that I was going to get drunk. And I said, "I'll take a bunch of those." He said, "A bunch?" I said, "Yeah, a bunch." He said, well, go ahead. And I put a bunch in a bag. And he said, "That's about 15 bottles." I said, "Yeah, that'll do it." And I reached over, I realized I needed some some food, some energy. So I grabbed a ding dong and I put it in the bag. And as I was leaving the ding dong, as I was leaving the room, I wondered, I said, I should have got some Twinkies. It's always I didn't know which was better, the Twinkies or the ding dongs, but I had ding dongs. So I went up to the 12th floor on the corner and I started drinking these little bottles of alcohol. Now, there was all different kinds. There was vodka and all kinds of whiskeys, and there was gin. Let me give you a piece of advice. Don't drink gin. It's the worst thing. It's like castor oil. But I didn't care. I just wanted to get drunk and get this awful pain off my chest. Well, after about 8 of those little bottles, I was ready. I was not feeling any pain at all, but I was dizzy. So the only place for me to go was down in the casino. It made sense. So I went down the casino and I was weaving my way around, and it was a circus. There was a cage with lions over here, and I think there was a tiger eating somebody over here, and there was a trapeze, and I sat there. I bought a $10 thing of quarters, a little roll of quarters. And I sat down at one of the quarter machines. I was putting them in, and I didn't put very many in, and I hit the jackpot. And all kinds of bells started going off, and quarters were pouring out the bottom, and people were coming over and clapping and stuff. And somebody gave me one of them little buckets, and I was filling my buckets with the quarters. And there was a nice lady right next there that was helping me out, putting some in her bucket. And then when I filled it all up, I had to go to the bathroom really bad. So I asked that lady, I set her on the chair. I said, you watch these, because I got to go to the bathroom. And so I went into the bathroom. And when I came back out, I couldn't find my quarters. I couldn't find that lady. And people were laughing at me. I said, hey, what's going on? And they said, this is Las Vegas. You got to watch your money. Oh, man, I didn't know what to do. So I decided to go back up to the room. I got in the elevator, and there was another man in there, and he said, how'd you do down there? I looked at my half roll of quarters. I said, I think I lost about $5. And he said, that's good, because there was some guy down there, some idiot, that left $400 worth of quarters on his chair while he went to the bathroom. What an idiot. I said, yeah, that guy's an idiot. They should have fed him to the tiger. So I got back up to the room, and I was still miserable. I took another couple of shots, and I decided, when I went over to the window to look down the 12th floor, I decided to commit suicide. I was going to jump. That was going to teach my wife a lesson, teach her what she had done to me. Oh man, she would be so, wait a minute. If I do that, then she'll get the house. She'll get both cars. She'll get the pension. She'll get our savings. And she'll be finished with me to boot. And all I'll get was splat. No, I'm not going to do that. What I really want to do is go down to the first floor and leap out of one of those windows. Maybe stub my toe or something, And then she would be really sorry. No, I'm not going to commit suicide. What I'm going to do is get my revenge by living a good life. Oh, that will make her mad. Oh. So once I decided that, I laid back down. I had one of those ding-dongs. And I guess I fell asleep. The next morning, I woke up a new man. He was still hurting, but it wasn't the same. And I went in the bathroom and I looked at myself. I had that rumpled on suit. My tie was still up there, my hair was messed up, and I needed a shave. I looked great. And I decided that I would go back. And I went back and got in my car, and I drove all the way to Los Angeles. I had one of those, the rest of them ding-dongs on the way. And when I got back, my wife was packing up for Ireland. And she said, you look a mess. I said, but I feel great. And then I found out later that when she got to Ireland, the guy changed his mind. So the fish was off the hook and she was tossed out of the boat. I guess that's what karma is. I had one side and she had the other, because I lived a really good life. As a matter of fact, a year later, I took my new fiancée, Jane, to Las Vegas. And we stayed at the Dunes. Now, you know what? The Dunes is right across the street from Circus Circus. So when we parked in the lot, I told Jane to go in there and start registering for us. I had to do something. So I went to the edge of the parking lot, which is right across the street from the Circus Circus. And I looked up at that 12th floor, that corner, right where I was. And I was thinking, you know, that's about 100 yards from where I was. No, it's 1,000,000 miles from where I was that night.
Thank you, Ron. I'm so glad you made that 1,000,000-mile journey to be with us here tonight. I've gotten to know our next storyteller, Mary Jo Pollack, through the touching, offbeat, humorous stories I've heard her tell through Odyssey and other local and national storytelling venues. Her story tonight tells of lessons learned in places you might not expect. Mary Jo.
I'm standing on top of my desk in my real estate office doing a little happy dance. It's an open floor plan, no cubicles, and everybody's just looking at me going, what's going on? And the broker hears all this commotion. He comes out of his office and around the corner and he said, what's going on in here? And Mary Jo, why are you on your desk? And I pick up this big fat folder and I say, I just did the biggest deal I've ever done. I sold over an acre in North Redondo, and the developer is going to build 16 brand new townhomes. And when they're completed, I will get the listings. And everybody's cheering, they're all excited. The broker's pretty happy. He knows 16 new townhomes will bring a lot of business in the office in a year or so when they're done. And I am really pumped up. I worked really hard to put this together, 4 different owners. And I am reminded of what my dad always used to say, the harder I work, the luckier I am. And I really believe that. It's 1980 and the real estate market is great. We're all selling lots of property. I bought a townhome. I am making more money than I've ever made in my life. I'm saving. I bought income property. Everything's just really going great. The office, everybody in the office, we're working really hard and we're having a great time doing it, making a lot of money and putting people in their homes. And as it gets close to the project being completed, the developer and the architect and I get together for a meeting. The architect and I have become pretty friendly by this point because every time he came down to look at the project, we'd go to lunch. So it's a friendly meeting, but we have to do a little negotiating. And I leave with the listings and at a decent price. And you know, I negotiated a little on my commission and they agreed to pay for some of the advertising. And I am feeling really great. And I'm going back to the office and starting to figure out everything that I have to do over the next several weeks to get this marketing plan in effect. I'm talking to my mom on the phone one night and I said, well, I'm planning a big broker's open house. And she said, what's that? And I said, well, it's when in the afternoon you invite the brokers in the area to come see your new listing, especially if you have 16 beautiful new townhomes or some other special property. And there's a day and time that's set aside and the brokers all pile in cars and they go traveling around. It's an efficient way to see a lot of property and put it in your mental inventory for future buyers. And I told her I'm expecting a big turnout because I've already had a lot of interest and the signs hadn't even gone up yet. She said, you know, Dad and I could come up and help you. It sounds like you could use some help. Yeah, Mom, come on up. I could use the help. A few days before the big event, my mom and dad drive up from San Diego, and my mom and I get busy in the kitchen baking cookies, and we made some other dishes to augment what I had ordered from the caterer. On the day of the broker's open house, we go over a couple of hours early, and the model's been sitting vacant for several weeks, and so I want to make sure everything is all spotless and sparkly. I bring some cleaning supplies. My parents help me set everything up. We go through the place and make sure it's shining. We got the food out, the brochures, and then I take a deep breath. And carload after carload after carload of brokers are showing up to my new townhomes. And it's a good thing my parents were there. I probably have 300 or 400 people. They're handing out the brochures and collecting cards. I never stopped talking all afternoon. It was exhausting, but I was pumped. Now the interest rates had just gone up a little bit. They're around 14%, but we figured, oh, you know, interest rates, they fluctuate a little. This can't last too long. And then the first weekend that I had a public open house, I had a great response. Lots of people came. A lot of them were neighbors and curiosity seekers because they saw these little 600 square foot homes raised and these big monolithic townhomes going up. And then the interest rates decided to creep up a little. So it went 15, 16, 18%. And then nobody showed up. Nobody showed up for anybody's open house. No calls were coming into the office. Ads weren't being answered. Appointments were being canceled. When interest rates are 18%, it's really difficult to qualify for a loan. We dropped the prices and we offered some incentives to help offset the finance costs. I started to feel really trapped. I was going to the bank every couple of weeks and taking money out of my savings because I had no escrows closing. And, but finally, a couple of units sold. And we breathed a sigh of relief and we thought the spell is broken. The rest of them are going to sell. But it didn't happen. And after some more months, the developer filed bankruptcy, and I almost did. The bank took over the property, and it took me almost 2 years to overcome my financial, personal, emotional, and mental failures. I had neglected my friends and family because all I could do was work and sleep. That's all I did. And it really takes a while to rebuild up. And then I'm reminded of my dad saying, the harder I work, the luckier I am. And I think, I don't believe that anymore. Because I worked much, much harder for the failure than I ever did for the success.
Thank you, Mary Jo. It's so valuable to realize that any activity in any walk of life can be a door to deeper learning. I've also known our final storyteller, Susan Allen, for several years. She's a wellness advocate for doTERRA who has imaginatively combined her exquisite jewelry designs with healing essential oils to make some beautiful jewelry with healing energy. And we'll hear some of her healing energy in her story tonight. Susan.
You will never ride your horse again, and you'll be on oxygen 24/7 for the rest of your life. And I'm going to put you on the list for a lung transplant. Yikes. Those are the words I heard a year ago from the pulmonologist as I checked out of a 6-day lovely stay at the Oro Valley Hospital. So, chapter 1, what happened? About 18 months ago, I had a huge flare-up of a thing called atopic dermatitis. Those are my eyes. 18 months ago, it was all over my hands, my legs, and my face. And it itched like hell. And I couldn't stand it anymore. So I decided that I was not going to take this prognosis laying down. And as I got out of the hospital, and he gave me that prognosis, they said, so what oxygen are you going to be using? The same as you have been? I said, I never used oxygen before this. Oh, well, you know, you have emphysema. I said, I never had emphysema before. And you have pulmonary fibrosis. I never had that before either. So what happened was the atopic dermatitis medication called methotrexate attacks cells. When it can't find cancer cells, which is what it's typically given to stage 4 cancer patients to kill off cancer cells. When it can't find cancer cells, it attacks the easiest cells to attack. And in my case, that was my lungs. My research showed that the methotrexate was probably responsible for what happened. So in my research, I had to figure out what would counteract that. What could I do so that I'm not going to have a lung transplant? I'm going to take care of this issue. And I found the answer with doTERRA essential oils, some very specialized supplements, and lung exercises with this thing from the medieval ages called the spirometer. I can blow up balloons now too. So that leads me to chapter 3. What does this have to do with karma? Karma certainly has a religious definition, but in my research and in my program of what happened, I've started to think of it as positive energy. If you say, oh, that's my destiny, that's my karma, you kind of make yourself a victim. You're saying, I'm going to take this outcome, whatever happens to me, and I'm just going to sort of be a passive acceptor of what happens. I think that we need to take what comes or make what comes. And I decided to make what comes. About that same time, I discovered something called the emotion code and the body code by Dr. Bradley Nelson. It examines how trapped emotions can often lead to illnesses based on autoimmune reactions to that trapped emotion. And guess what? My trapped emotions that caused illnesses were right in my lungs. So with energy work, with essential oils, and I am a doTERRA advocate, supplements, and my exercises, after about 3 months, I put a saddle on the horse. After 6 months, I am now riding at my usual speed and my usual distance on my best friend Chester, who you see behind me. He's happy and I'm happy. And I rode yesterday morning looking at the wonderful weather and the mountains thinking, I am so blessed to be here today. So the moral of my story is ride, or get off the horse.
Thank you, Susan. I really like how you define karma as an active intention and how it has worked in your life. That reminds me that I perhaps have a similar connection with karma. Before I started college many years ago, I was studying acting in New York City, but I was really daunted by the business of acting, so I pursued another career path as a university professor of ancient Greek drama. For real. Well, the pull to acting continued strong, and after years of working and learning at my day job, I'm now fulfilling my heart's desire, acting and storytelling on the Tucson stage. And these days, that means both live and streaming.
I think it's encouraging that we can see results from our past experiences and a fulfillment of the past, even at any stage in our life.
Yes, it certainly is. Well, that concludes our show for tonight. I feel these stories have graced us with deeply rewarding karmic experiences, joys and travails, focused effort, miles traveled and lessons learned, a journey through the range life has to offer, and coming through the events to tell the stories that give these experiences their meaning.
I hope that our audience finds the stories as enjoyable and rewarding as we have.
Oh, absolutely. And thank you, Ethel, for producing this great show. To our wonderful audience members, please show our storytellers your support by contacting them and checking into the services they offer. Gail for dream work and yoga. Susan for healing oils, jewelry, and creative designs. Ron and Ethel for their storytelling books. Mary Jo for her storytelling events. Tim for his stand-up comedy events.
And you, my friend Bella, for your wonderful customized travels to Greece. And let's give a shout out to Miles Schneiderman for producing, taking care of taping and organizing our podcast and these shows. And also Steve Braun for managing the Odyssey website.
And especially to the director of Odyssey Storytelling, Ana Montañez. And with that, I'd like to give the final words to Ana.
Hi, everyone. Ana here. I wanted to, first of all, just thank Bella and Ethel for all of their hard work on this show. As executive producer, I get to work with everyone who puts together these shows every month. And I just really want to shout out to them because they did an amazing job. We're super organized and a wonderful job of having everything ready to go. We do these shows obviously in a virtual way. And so there's a lot of work that goes into it. And I just want to thank them once more for all of their hard work doing this. And of course, our storytellers for such a good job, of course, of sharing their stories as well. If you're looking forward to more stories, we are nearing the end of the year, obviously. So December is our upcoming show, and it is called Snowflake. So we'll talk about that in just a second here. But as always, I really want to thank everybody for joining us, continuing to watch our shows, continuing to keep Odyssey alive. And if you're interested in also assisting us to stay alive from a financial standpoint, really want to encourage everybody to give if you can, right? $5, $10, whatever you can do, every little bit helps. If you're interested in doing that, you can do that directly through odysseystorytelling.com. There's a link right on the front page to do that. If that particular option on giving is not a good one for you, because it is through PayPal, if you don't like that option, reach out to us. Go ahead and email me at stories@odysseystorytelling.com. I'm happy to discuss some other ways that you could potentially donate. With that, as we're nearing the end of the year, looking forward to our last show, I want to reassure everybody that Odyssey will definitely continue doing storytelling into the following calendar year. So we're looking forward to next year. This is the time of year that we put together our themes for next year. So look forward to all of that information again on our website. And if you can, follow us on social media, follow the YouTube channel. That really just makes it easy for you to find all of our announcements and stories. And then finally, you know, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention, obviously, everything kind of going on right now, because it's a very interesting and historic time in our country. And, you know, it's something that definitely I personally have been watching. Obviously, I'm sure all of you have been observing it as well. Everybody has been very invested in the election overall. And, you know, because December is going to be our snowflake show, I sort of wonder how that particular theme is going to look, right? Which we'll find out. I'm actually going to be a storyteller. So I'm excited for that, and excited to see what people share, and wonder if, you know, this is going to maybe make us think a little bit differently, or maybe bring up a different story to tell. Who knows? With that, I do want to say, obviously, that, you know, we are not a political organization by any means. I know that our folks who watch our stories and follow us certainly could have voted either way, and that is a totally personal thing for you to decide. What I will say is, I'm hopeful that maybe moving forward, again, that we can start to come together a little bit more. I know that there's been, you know, obviously there's been a lot of disagreements, a lot of things that people don't agree on overall, on basics, and all the way up to much more deeper moral things. And so, you know, I think that hopefully moving forward, things will get better. Hopefully this can be a time for us to really learn more from each other and heal. And with that, I want to say, remember that the essence of our organization is to build community, right? So this is a great way for us to hear those personal stories from each other and just try to understand other perspectives. And I think that's a beautiful thing. So if you're looking for more ways to listen and understand, I think Odyssey is actually a great place for you to be. Yeah, I think I'll leave it at that. All right, everybody. I miss your faces as always. Hope to, you know, eventually see you all in person. But until then, please continue to keep in touch, especially through our social media. And have a great rest of the month. We will see you in December.